individualistic values are very egocentric, because they're rooted in a sense of I am something, you are something else. Therefore, like, this is good for me, and if you don't like it, then it's not my problem.
Right. Yeah, I always forget that you're a technician, and I forget that. I forget
Yeah,
that that I can always ask you if I'm in, because I don't know
yeah,
that many people who are like,
yeah,
legitimately
yeah,
have done it for a living,
yeah. No,
Obviously.
it's true. I'm a very creative person, and I also spent 10 years being a technician in music. So I've pretty much seen most technical solutions to audio, podcasts, music, theatre, all of them. So yeah, I'm sitting in quite a nice position.
Yeah,
Really.
I think it's like being creative to create something new or create something that
Yeah.
combines all these things that you've picked up along the way.
Yeah, that's the main thing for me right now, is to have a vision, to actually to connect to my soul, and to really to have a vision going forward. Like I seem to have spent my life accruing skills and knowledge and wisdom. Now I just need to have conviction and in what I'm doing.
Mm.
Yeah.
How are you calling that in, that conviction? I think this is a part of that. Just saying
Yeah.
yes to things.
Yeah, it's true. Just listening for the right timing. You said, I'm so happy you said yes. And I was like, well, it feels right. And that's what, to me, I don't, I don't have much, um, I don't have much, I don't put much strength on individuality in a way. Like I listen for timing. And if it feels right to me, and it's like aligned with what I perceive to be my purpose and my soul speak, or whatever you want to call it, then I do it. But it's less about like I have this plan to dominate my life, or to create something, or to like control my legacy. And don't get me wrong, all of those things have been in my life in a very demanding way. But that's what I'm deepening into right now. Just kind of surrender to the timing of things. So yeah.
Yeah, like it
Mm-hmm.
can be almost the hardest thing to do,
Uh-huh.
knowing when you're ready for something, or knowing what that intuition's saying. But I think you, over anyone that I know personally and know well, you say yes and no, and you're very firm on those things. You're like yes when it's yes, but no when it's a no, and it's like no, not ready for that now. And I sometimes it jolts something in me, and I'm like, oh, that's like very stern, and you can take that up like personally, as we do as humans, we take things personally. And that's one thing for me lately I'm trying not to do. So
Yeah.
it's just it's refreshing that you hear, because if we all acted from that place that is no, this is not what's right for me right now, and your response to that, as in my response, it doesn't matter to me. Like you
Yeah.
that's on you.
Yeah. Also, I've noticed this happening in our friendship, and I really appreciate you expressing it, because sometimes I do say things and I can notice that reaction in you, and I go, oh, okay, I have compassion for you. And I think that's the difference between aggression and assertion, is like I see how you're reacting or responding to things, and I'm open to your expressions also. But it's not changing for me.
Yeah,
Or
exactly. You're
not
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 gonna.
but and it's not
Yeah,
changing for me.
you're
Yeah.
not gonna. You're here for me, and you're here to talk about something that I want, that comes up for me. But
Yeah.
it's not gonna change your outcome.
No.
You know, you're not
Yeah.
just gonna because I guess that's where it can go into more of a toxic feeling or relationship when it's like a firm no, and I'm not even going to talk to you about it because it's just a no.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think that word's, toxic as a word it's great to highlight behaviors that are like unhealthy, or if people are underdeveloped in a certain area of their life and they're causing harm. Yeah, it's great to like bring it to light. I think there's a propensity nowadays to label something X or Y, like this is a toxic relationship, or you're a narcissist, or this is that, or I'm this. And then I'm just very keen on the complexity of life and the complexity of humanity. And there are definitely moments where I've with the help of others, like the mirror of a relationship and friendship, like I've recognized that I've been aggressive, or I've been toxic or harmful in a certain way, and I've expanded my awareness there. And I think that's all we can do, really. I'm very reticent to like that label of sort of toxic relationship, because then the framework for the relationship is you're hurting me, you're not good for me, this isn't working. And then, like everything else, the frame of reference that we all have is what we see in the world. Everything exists in the world, in every scenario. So basically we're like scanning machines almost. We're like bio machines. We're like scanning our environments for affirmation of our beliefs. So, and I've been in situations before where I have had to label a relationship harmful, and I say, okay, this is not for me. Like we're gonna, we're diverging or whatever. We don't have the same values. That's a day for me. Like call it a day and move on. But yeah, I think with the firmness, and you said stern, and I think I value that, in especially as being a man. I very much believe that a man is only as good as his word. And in terms of that, like action is most important. You can, words are very powerful, but really the conviction to act on your beliefs and your purpose is everything. Because you can say, I'm a great person, I treat people kindly, but when it comes to it, if there's someone you don't like in the street, are you willing to sit with your fear and your anger, possibly, and treat them actually kindly and compassionately? Well, that's the hardest thing to do. I think that for me, that's the journey. That was a bit of a rant. Sorry.
Definitely not a rant. I love our conversations, mate. And I have to say, welcome back to the podcast. You're on episode 2.
Yeah, number 2.
But no, starting. I wouldn't say that was a rant. I'd say that was a powerful entrance to the conversation.
Nice.
It's important. It's important that thoughts and what we say. I mean, it's take the podcast, 2 people talking, hopefully about meaningful stuff that is important to us as individuals. But then we get into this territory of like, oh yeah, kind of, trying to spread some wisdom and showing up in a way that I guess we would like to show up. But then it's checking in, is that how I'm living my life? We talked about this the other day. It's like, very true. Is this the things I talk about in the podcast? Is that actually how I'm being in the real world? Or is this just some sort of, what's the word? It's like an alter ego, I guess. That's not really quite the right word for it, but it's like the best version of myself in this, because of course I want the podcast to do well. I want to show up for the podcast, and I want to
Mhm.
be ready with some things I've been thinking about or whatever that is. But how
Yeah.
can I actually balance that with actually checking in with what's authentic, what is real, over me just trying to sound good?
Yeah,
Because there is that side
totally.
to it.
Yeah, totally. And maybe there's some things for me to own there. Like I said that I would be here earlier than I was today, and that caused me a lot of pain and anxiety that I was late, and I started blaming things around me. And there's a chance for me to take responsibility there. I was late, and you were very calming. Um, and
I also
that
checked myself there when I said, I
yeah,
messaged you, I was like, it's okay, be patient.
yeah,
Let's do 11. And I was like, I'm telling you to be patient. That didn't really feel right. I should have
well,
framed that in a better way. It's like, I'm patient over anything else. It's all good. It'll happen.
yeah,
Let's
uh-huh.
set a new time. But yeah, I was in no pressure or stress or anything. But
Mm-hmm.
I think it's in those opportunities to clarify or to
Yeah.
readdress certain things, because we do. And I just want to talk about this thing yesterday that happened to me when
Mm-hmm.
I was on the way to a men's group meetup, and we were playing some rugby tennis on the beach. And I was like, so I'm going to this men's group, something that I really value. And I'm like, this is something I really want to do. Yeah, I'm feeling anxious. All the work that I'm doing, all the like introspection, all the places of all the things that I talk about, and I'm feeling anxious going to meet other men on the beach.
Yeah.
And it's like, what is going on? I'm
Yeah.
just trying to, like, someone would listen to this podcast and think Chris doesn't get anxious. He's not
Yeah.
like, he's not feeling these things because
Yeah.
he's talking about he's trying to almost teach people to some extent on like how to understand that anxiety and move through it. But
Mm-hmm.
there I
Mm-hmm.
am on the way to just meet some friends, and I'm an anxious.
Yeah.
I am that anxious feelings coming up.
Yeah.
It's fascinating.
That's good.
It's
It's
just
fascinating.
owning that, I guess.
Yeah, owning it and taking responsibility for it. But also, you know, inherent in what you just said is that anxiety is unnatural, maybe, or wrong in that situation. The invitation for me, and I think any sort of teacher worth their sort of salt in the world understands that anxiety is very natural part of an intelligent part of being human. And if I just chew over that situation even slightly, I would come up with a few ways that I might be anxious in that situation. Like, oh, I want to have a good time. Like, I want them to like me as a person. Like, is this going to be powerful? Are we going to get things out of this experience that I want us to get? Like, all of those things, that's a kind of lens of anxiety. And I think it's a great opportunity, like how we started this call, to change that lens to a sort of joyful, surrendered lens. Like, can I be fully present with my friends,
Mm-hmm.
or with these men that I'm doing very, in my opinion, sacred work with? And
Mm-hmm.
I like when teachers say, like, life should be playful, life should be joyful. It shouldn't be this really pressurized, stressful thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, of course, there are stresses in the world, um, and I can be grateful for those stresses, because the act of change, you have to come up against the ceiling and the stresses of old versus new being, like states of being.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I think that playfulness, seriousness is one thing that I definitely catch myself being too serious, and
mm,
it seems to be a byproduct of something else, which is
yeah,
interesting. But
I do also, actually. I'm very serious. My partner always says to me, like, her joy and playfulness is rubbing off on me. And that's so true. And actually we joke that my structure is rubbing off on her. So you know, that like these are the things. And what I'm saying about individuality is that we don't live in a bubble. Like we've been told for maybe 1,000 years that it's important for us to be individual, but actually the very essence of our nature is that we are immersed in the environment, for one, and also the most important and shaping things that we have as human beings, our relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we imitate our environment massively, and I'm glad
Yeah.
I'm sure there's things that rub not so positively on each other as well. But it's good that
Well,
focusing on the things that is actually benefiting each other. And okay, I'm taking this from this, and I
yeah.
might see that, but I'm not gonna allow
Yeah.
that in so much.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things, I've been going through quite a lot of change recently. And one of the things that I kind of took on board from the Diamond Approach book that I read is that, you know, sometimes when we go through a situation with someone and we think like, oh, that was difficult or challenging or harmful in some way, actually the it's like the soul is like calling you through that experience in some way. It's like you have something there that's either missing, or I'm just very much of the belief that if something is quote unquote sort of negative,
Mm.
then if you sit with it and you sort of move through that experience, it's like you go through the gateway of that experience. And it's not always possible to sit with those experiences. Like numbing is a feeling that's very important, because we'd never get anything done if we were just sat around sort of thinking about our pain, and that's not healthy either. um but I have, when it is possible, I have experienced quite a bit of that gateway. So you just
Mm.
I'm just sitting with that experience. Okay, why am I so upset? Oh, it's because I care so deeply. It's because I love this person so deeply. It's because I've seen something in them that reminds me of this, that. And it's always, I think it always comes back to this possibility of self-growth. You know, we're always translating experience through our lens of life. And yeah, that's just, for me, it's a very profound switch that happened. You know, if I'm, of course, like if something hurts me, then we have a conversation and we can make agreements so that it doesn't happen again, or so that someone can understand my perspective of why it hurts me and have compassion for me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. or
Yeah.
or some situations just you have to live with the sense that, okay, this part of life we're not aligned on, and there's a great amount that we are aligned on, but this right here we're not aligned on, and it's painful to both of us. Can we sit with that and have compassion that now is not the time for us to be aligned on this one thing? Because I'll tell you one thing, like everyone here seems to want their partners to be everything. And that's not possible. That's not a possible thing.
Yeah, that's beautiful, man. That's beautiful to recognize that. And it doesn't have
Uh-huh.
to be solved right now. We
Uh-huh.
agree and we disagree on this, or
Yeah.
we want the same thing, but getting there and our approach to it is
Yeah.
different.
Yeah. I think with the creativity, I'm a creative centered person. Like it's just who I am. I think a disagreement is an opportunity to be creative, but it doesn't. You can't be creative with life until you admit life. You admit the disagreement and be like, okay, this I'm feeling this pain. You're feeling this pain or fear or anger. Let's be real with that. Like let's sit with it and let's try and see where life is trying to lead us here. Like, okay, is there a solution? Like, what would feel better? And there's always solution. There's always, because life is continuously moving. So getting into that sort of linear thinking where, okay, we're here and then we must be here, and there are steps to get there, and we're not doing them. We're not doing those steps properly, and we need to talk about it because we're not doing it right. Rather than saying, okay, let's step back here and like create, and a creative mindset is more lateral. Like, it's kind of, okay, let's take in the whole perspective. Because like in Tibetan Buddhism, they say like impatience is always from an incomplete picture. So I love that quote, and it grounds me all the time. When I'm feeling anxious or impatient, I'm like, okay, it must be an incomplete picture. So yeah, that's how I see those situations.
Mm-hmm. Can you talk more about that, like the incomplete picture? Because I think it's a
yeah definitely.
Like, what are you not seeing there? I guess it's like, what do I need to step back from seeing this in a certain way? You see, for me, I guess I'm not seeing the incomplete picture because I'm so close to the thing I want, or I can't see how we can resolve this. So something needs to happen for me to see the whole thing, because everything is possible. We only limit it, I guess, with our thinking.
Yeah, that's true. And it's very necessary it's just sort of inherent, it's innate in us to focus on things, and to have a personality, and to think and to be in a certain way. And I'd even put forward that our soul speaks in a certain way. Like, for example, the Enneagram lens of seeing humanity says that, we've all got a very sort of specific energy that we love to express through. And that kind of goes back to like love languages as well. Like, we have certain love language that really lights us up, and then some others that are pleasant, they're good, but they don't get to us as much as our one main love language. And so there's this beautiful sort of dance, co-creation between soul and mind, like the mind is trying to protect us, personality is trying to protect us based on our history. It's really understandable. And then the soul is this vast and expansive thing that just is infinite, but it wants to express itself in a certain way. So that's how I see it, and the growth that I've done this year through training to be an integral coach, an associate coach through integral theory, has really resonated with me. And I use the word resonance all the time. And I think for me, when I talk about timing, I'm actually talking about resonance. Like, I'm feeling into like, does this resonate with me? Like, A, is it kind of useful to me right now? Or B, does it sort of excite me? And C, like, based on my purpose and my values, or where I see myself in 5 years, for example, is this action good for me? Like, even in the sense of like, if I have a relationship, we've talked about where we want to be in 5 years. The very simple sense of, is every action like aligned to that?
Yeah.
And in so many people, I suppose I'm not making decisions that are aligning to where they want to be in 5 years, and then turning around in 5 years going, oh, I don't know why I haven't achieved that. But also with the incomplete picture, the integral lens work, the perspective taking is multifaceted. So you can look at yourself in certain ways, like how you are as a person, how you see the world, how you interact with other people. and what kind of systems you're a part of. Like, what's my beliefs? Am I religious? Do I believe in certain way of governing? They're all systems that I've either grown up with or decided to believe in over the course of my life. And then the last thing I'll say is there's there's kind of this how we center our perspective as well. So we can center it egocentrically, and then there's ethnocentrically, which is cultural lens, which is very important, has become incredibly important nowadays, like really polarized. So people are grounding very much in ethnocentric lenses right now. This is because, it's kind of unstable in what we've been through in the last 2 years. Then there's an ecocentric lens, which is very much prevalent with what we're calling climate change, which is a human crisis of how we relate to the environment. And then there's the cosmic-centric lens, which a lot of spiritual teachers talk about, universal, infinite energy, and the soul and the joy and love being, the spiritual path, I suppose. So that's what the Tibetans were talking about when I read about it. If you zoom out far enough, you'll see the perspective. So if you come out to cosmic centered thinking, we're like a speck of Earth in the vastness of time and space. But it doesn't mean that we disappear. It actually makes the clarity of what we're here to achieve greater. And we can see our environment very objectively and then say, okay, this is what I believe in. This is what I love. I'm going to do that. And it aligns to what I believe in as a human being. Yeah.
You can you can witness your fears from that perspective.
Yeah.
And you're guided by love or fear or frustration because your belief is almost shaping something about the way in which you see the world. What would some examples of ego-centered and egocentric be? Because you gave some examples of like the cultural, and this is all, would you say this is identity?
Yeah, that's interesting as well. Identity for me has all of those different layers. If you've done a bit of work on yourself, then they can expand. Like if you have an ecocentric identity, you can know that you're a part of the environment, and when you're sort of walking in nature, you're sort of interacting and being a part of nature. All of that was a part of native culture, even to the West. Like we decided through different events that happened to change that. But a lot of the beliefs in Europe that then spread to America were based on ecocentric identity. But egocentric identity, I suppose, is the protective measures, but also like I would say like individualistic values are very egocentric because they're rooted in a sense of I am something, you are something else. Therefore, like, this is good for me. And if you don't like it, then it's not my problem. So it's not taking in the perspective of the other. And I suppose you get varying degrees of that. Yeah.
So I ended up having quite a long conversation with a friend. We're going back and forth. We're writing essays to each other actually about individualism and collectivism. And I use it as an opportunity to dive deeper, to understand this more and why it's shaped a lot of political theory and, political structures. Obviously, we could take an obvious example of like China being very collective in their approach. It's not about the individual. of course
Mhm.
there's so much overlap here, and you can't say it's one or the other, because of course we are all made up of, the collective is made up of individuals, but it's a I think it's a fascinating
Mhm.
way of looking at the world, like, and coming
Yeah.
from like the society at large and the culture at large. Like, individualism has created so much affluence over here, and would we have got there if it was more about the collective? Because collectivism, what I was looking into, always leads to totalitarianism, and there's never been a case where that hasn't happened. Do you know what I'm saying? It's because there's so much power, and this could be, loads of factors, but there's so much power at the top level that kind of orchestrate the culture in this way, or we value the collective over the individual. And it's almost like there needs, for this to kind of play out, the government have to have that say, or that structure has to have some sort of not control, but overarching, these are things that we agree on. We have to agree certain things that are in the cultural fabric. We have to
Mhm.
agree on certain things that, whether it's, where the money's going, or this is better for the whole and not the individual. So I mean, I might even include underneath the podcast, like, what I wrote about this. But it was pretty interesting to try and uncover some of these things, that how in the West you could say the rise of individualism has led to more affluence.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And what price have we paid for that? That's
yeah,
another question. And also, I just want to say that there's a lot of cultures that are based on collectivism. Native cultures that are harmonious.
mm-hmm.
It seems to be maybe a modern phenomenon, that collectivism has turned totalitarian. And again,
Yeah,
I think because there's this opportunity, because it's quite vulnerable to people who are very strong-willed and individualistic to take power in that scenario. I suppose, for me.
mm-hmm.
But also there's this, what price have we paid for our affluence here? The only reason we've been able to grow so exponentially is from, the cheap labor of developing countries, for example.
Yeah,
How morally correct is that? This culture moves so fast, we're unable to discuss morals. We're just looking backwards and referencing and trying to pick our way through events and make some form of sense out of them. I'm really interested in ancient Chinese culture, and in that sense, like you said, the collective is full of individuals. I think the main difference for me is that there's collective purpose to each individual within that. You can't have a civilized culture unless people are compromising for the greater good. And that's just seems to be a fact of how we organize as humans. So I very much think our progress has been very entitled. Like, we think we're entitled to this excessive amount of things, like food, money, possessions. If you go into anyone's house here in the West, I'd probably say it's over over. It's just clutter. There's clutter everywhere. And that's not to say I don't have clutter. I'm looking around, there's clutter in my house. So, when I've traveled in the world, sometimes I've gone to remote places where they maybe live a bit more traditionally and collectively, and there's, I don't know, one pot to cook with and one broom to sweep the floor. I'm not romanticizing it, but it just shows a bit more of a collective mindset. Like, this is the village something, you know, like if you need something taking somewhere, this is the guy to do it, you know. Everybody knows he just takes people around, does things, you know. Or if you need someone to build a house, these guys are the people that know how to build a house. Yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah. What about like self-actualization? And I've always really resonated with the idea that the best thing you can do for society is self-actualization, like the understanding yourself and that kind of progression to liberation and I guess talking about Buddhism, like it is about that. It's about that self-actualization of the individual for the collective. So it's like a precursor to being a part of the collective almost.
I think I resonate with that personally, but I don't think it's everyone's path to do that. And I think I would reference what I've read of Bill Plotkin when he says he's a developmental I'm not really sure what he'd call himself, but he does a lot of research and a lot of work in the field. And he says that a civilization or society needs every stage of development for it to be healthy. So yes, like some people's path is to self-actualize, and other people's path is to work on the security of a civilization, which is like right down there at the bottom. But if you don't have security, then you're just full of fear and dread. You know, I think we've both been in that position in our lives. So it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I believe essentially in harmony. And if everybody's self-actualizing, then we get the kind of society that we're in now. Actually, we're prone to individualism, and we're prone to doing things that will create that self-actualization, maybe at the detriment of the collective good. So I'm kind of the lens where I see it as a bit of a dance between security and I think all of the Maslow's needs are important.
Yeah. I also want to talk about that kind of, because there is so much overlap here. There's also so much overlap between what we do as individuals and what we value and what we believe, which affects our actions, and how that overlaps with, like, yeah, it is. It is very complex. Like, you know, just take COVID for example. It's or when you fall ill or you've got a cold, you know, you're aware that it's probably better for other people if I don't go super close to them. You know, germ theory is still a theory, but there's some evidence to suggest that you can infect other people with you know, with the virus that you have. So it's like, okay, for the greater good, I'm gonna, like, you know, just you know, keep away from people for now. And we can all agree on that is something you want to do for the collective. So there's a real black and white example of that. But then when it gets silly is when there's patents for certain things that we know are good for the collective. So say there's a vaccine and it's an effective vaccine, but there's patents on it. So only our country or certain countries can actually in hold of that. You know, what defining first what we mean by the collective, I guess, is it like back to what you said about tuning into the eco or the cosmos, which is like, where are we at on that? Do we think our country's the collective, or are we looking beyond that?
Yeah, I mean, I think my opinion is that we're living in a time where the ethnocentric lens is very confused, or a lot of people are very rigid about it because it's widely recognized that the civilization of Western civilization is in a collapse phase. And that's not to say that it's gonna disappear overnight or whatever. Like, it's just in that energy of collapse, which actually means that it's moving towards a kind of rebirth energy, which is very exciting. But all of those like, you could take the perspective, all of those things of like patenting a vaccine just because it came out of a lab in a country that recognizes itself as a label, like the UK or America or China or Brazil or anywhere, is irrelevant to what it actually is. It's a synthetic form of the vaccine that makes our bodies create the antibodies needed to fight the virus. That's what it is on the base level. So I think I'm very into like kind of realism in that way, like seeing things for what they are. And then, it's very important to make up your own perspective on each layer. And you can guarantee that if I don't put time and effort into seeing that perspective and deciding or responding in a way to create my stories about that thing, then I'll revert to my cultural identity or the way that I was brought up, or my ancestral stories. So that to me is very simple. I'm making decisions all the time. And for example, with the vaccine, if I decide to not choose to engage with that, I'm making a decision, and that decision is inaction. Yeah. But yeah, I don't necessarily agree that, I have my belief set would have me just roll out everything, to be accessible to everybody. But I think it's quite dangerous to be entitled as well, to say that we should provide the world with what they want, then you go back to the proverb of like giving a man a net so that he can fish. Or like teaching someone how to do something is way better than becoming the savior of that person. And then they become dependent on you, and that feels really good.
Fascinating. I mean, imagine if you got the world leaders together and go, okay, what can we all agree on here? Clean water and accessible water for everyone is probably something we should really be trying to nail. We should really be trying to like nail that as a fundamental, like forget education and giving people money, like, because that's, teach someone to fish is better than giving them fish every day. It's but something that we can all agree on is trying to move towards the clean running water for everyone. But it gets very complex very quickly because of where we got to in the world. But something I do want to touch upon and talk about is is this kind of perpetual situation we've got ourselves in, and largely this kind of Western idea of progress and where we're moving towards, and this very masculine energy that's moving towards almost certain collapse. It's just inevitable. I hear Zach Bush talk about it like a cancer. It's cancers eventually, they spread and then it dies, and it will, much like every other civilization that's got to a certain level of growth, it then implodes because the resources become too far reaching and out wide, and it's this direction that we're going in, which is it's just inevitably going to collapse. But what will that birth, what will that look like in its next regeneration?
Well,
we talked about on our first podcast this the rise of the feminine. And I think
True.
I've definitely grown a lot and learned more about something I was probably naive to
Yeah.
back then,
Mm-hmm.
over nearly 2 years ago.
It's funny that you said that right now, because that's exactly what I was thinking all the way through listening to you, also listening to your words, but also thinking feminine, feminine, feminine is, so you picked up on that almost in the resonance of our conversation. So in terms of that, I believe in kind of emergent culture, things emerge from collective space. You mentioned the collective field. You can see throughout history there's been archetypal energies that have risen in cultures. We imitate our environments. We sometimes, it's fascinating, a bit of a side note, but for example, when we invented planes, we were like imitating birds. Submarines are kind of imitating whales. Like, they're the same technology. When we talk, we resonate with certain animals. We're kind of imitating all the time. But in terms of that thing that you said about, almost, I would call it voracious energy for the progress thing, that I'd say it's definitely a wounded masculine energy, that is just, and it's not even, I don't think it's even that conscious, because, and also, like, by the way, people believe in the progress, so they think what they're doing is good, so their whole perspective lens, if you have a set of options, we'll take the one that progresses us. But when you think about the feminine, and actually when you think about cancer, think about how we framed cancer. It's not good. It's not a part of our bodies. We're fighting it. We want to eradicate it.
The war on cancer.
The war on cancer. They also said there was a war against the virus. And when you start to war against the universe, against nature itself, which is inherently a part of us, cancer is a mutated cell from within us. It is a part of us. Our body has made that decision to mutate in that way. Why has it done that? So if you frame it that way, it requires care, and it requires nurture, and it requires nourishment, and it requires you to sit and listen to your body and to listen to nature. All of those things are feminine attributes, and that is what we're lacking, because this society has been anti-feminine. I would say it's oppressed the feminine for thousands of years, well, maybe 1,000 years. So it's not even in our scope. It's not even in our paradigm to sit down and relax. I had to do so much work before I could just be like, I've got some time. Maybe I'll take a rest, have a cup of tea, or even cup of tea is doing something, so it's so inherent in our society. And just think about greetings. Greetings are very powerful. How do people greet people nowadays? They say, how are you doing? How you doing? So it's framing it in progress. Are you busy? Oh, that's good. You're busy. And so all of those things are not wrong, because they need to be a part of it, but it's excessive. It's the excess of it. And so I think, we all sit around and talk about how do we change the world? How does culture change? Culture changes in those little perspective changes, and that is expanding to the complete picture of balanced energy. So you have the feminine energy, and you actually are able to have a feminine quality to within you as a man, and for the female have a healthy masculine within themselves as well. I think it's very complex, and I've done a lot of study, both mentally and in an embodied way, physically, spiritually, energetically, around the different attributes to masculine and feminine energy. because you can bet your life that once you open that up, there's a bunch of wounding in there. Like the feminine can be never satisfied. They'll take the energy takes and takes and takes if it's given the chance. Therefore, the healthy masculine structure is required to contain it and sort of give it direction. And that's a natural thing, whether you identify with being a man or a masculine energy, or a woman and a feminine energy. Or even if you don't relate to gender at all, you still have those energies within you. That's how nature works.
I feel like we need new words for it, because it's so it seems like it's so inherently jarred towards gender.
It's true. I think it's an opportunity for us, honestly.
Yeah. But within what you just said about it's so simple to rewrite that song of do be be, and just rewrite it to do, and like have those. I think Paul Check talked about that once. The song of do. It's just the same song, but it's a different melody, or different genre. But it's a cool example of just integrating those energy systems, which is what they are. They're energies. There's ways of interacting with the world, and we need both. We need a balance. We need that metamorphosis of the equilibrium of it all. And we have those small talks with people. I mean, I was just chatting to the guy at the coffee shop, and you can just tell he hasn't even got time to chat. He's just so, I mean, hey mate, if you're listening, he may be listening, to be fair, because I talk about the podcast. But it's just it's just checking in. Right? He was like, he's busy. He's got things to do, and if he takes more stuff on, it's like spreading myself too thin, and then nothing will get done well, and it's that busy. But it's in those small talks that we have, and if we're not asking each other those questions, all right, are you busy? Oh, and then your response is great, like, okay, is it, in what way are you busy? Like, as men to other men, like, are we checking in with, well, take some time for yourself, make sure you don't push yourself too much, because if the why you're doing it gets a bit murky and a bit confusing, because I had Alex Manzi on IG Live the other day, and he talked about this, the fisherman in the boat. And I love this story. There's a fisherman in a boat, and he's fishing, and a businessman comes up to him and goes, oh, hey man, why don't you get a bigger boat? Wait, first of all, he says, why are you fishing? He goes, I'm just fishing so I can feed my family, and then I can spend time with them. He goes, well, get a bigger boat, and then you can get a loan, get a bigger boat, and then get some more fish, and then you can go to the market, and then you can do all this stuff and basically create a fishing business. And he's like, well, why would I do that? Well, so you can have more money, have more fish, you can sell it, so you can spend time with your family. He goes, but that's what I'm doing anyway, spending time with my family. So often the thing that we're doing is, I mean, that was a terrible telling of that story.
I don't think
However,
so. I enjoyed it.
Alex tells it remarkably well. But it's, you get the premise. It's we're doing things in a certain pattern, or on a certain trajectory or momentum, and really we lose sight of the why, of like what's important. And for sure. Classic preaching, but it is, we're doing things in that certain energy, in that certain vibration, in a direction where really if we took some, again, taking, it's like, I feel like that's masculine, but it's like if we harmonize those two ways of interacting with the world, then we're gonna hopefully see some change.
I think what I talk about as the opportunity is like the masculine can be, I mean, it's absolutely beautiful, in its healthy form, and taking is a part of that. What do I need, and what do I need to take to make that happen? Where it goes wounded is taking things that you know that are going to harm other people.
Sure.
So it's all an opportunity to see the complexity of where we're at right now, and just to make small decisions, you know, like at the coffee shop. You know, I thinking of someone who's been incredibly valuable to my life is Connor Beaton. Joined his men's group a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, and just saw like absolutely astronomical growth, you know, because he observes energy, and he's very simple with his things. If you're overextended in your life, you will feel pressure and stress, because really, like, I celebrate a successful business, but business is supposed to work for you and for the collective. So this guy who sells coffee is serving the collective, and really I would say his situation is very good, apart from one thing that I heard, that he doesn't have time to talk to people because he's too busy. Maybe he needs some more staff. Maybe he's worried about finances. Who knows? But I don't know him. But in my life, I think the moment that I'm not present to my own life, and that might be every situation. Like if I'm at work and we're delivering something to a customer, and I don't want to admit that they're in front of me and that they're saying something, then I'm distracted and I'm not present to my life. And I think it's very simple in that way. Obviously, it's very hard to not be distracted because there's a million ways that we've been hurt, or that the environment, like intentionally, like social media is designed to distract us, and actually designed at a limbic level, like subconscious level, to be addictive. So that is, if that's not disturbing to you, then you're not awake or present to your life. And that's, I use social media, but I've learned to do it in a very boundaried way so that it can work for me. Therefore, and this is probably coming more from a men's lens, therefore that I can serve my community better because I have more resources. But even if you're a woman and you're present, then you have all of that beautiful love, care, nourishment to give to the people that you love. And we don't have infinite resources. Yeah, we have to make a choice about who we're giving our time, energy, and love to, and that can be very difficult, but I think it's essential.
Yeah, it's very true. It's very true. It's more important than ever to know that you haven't got an infinite amount of time and energy.
Yeah. Well, that's a big subject, really, like, because, you know, with this whole human crisis around climate change, you know, a long time ago, there was this idea that was floated that we had 11 years left before it was irreversible. And I think that's very much affected me in the last few years, but I think it's kind of just sat there as an idea, and it's not been explored. But I would say, yeah, that's the generational idea that if when I grow up, that the earth might, okay, not the earth, but like humanity as it stands might not be here even, or the same. It's demotivating. It's sometimes it's demotivating, and other times it's motivating. You could be like, okay, well, I'm going to make the best of the time I have left, or I'm going to try and change our impact on the earth. And other times people I've been in this place as well, like the despair of like, oh, it's hopeless. Like these wheels are turning, the culture that's turning, the energy is too great. Like we're not going to stop it. So yeah, all of those things. That's a big conversation.
It is, but one we should be all checking in with, because it's affecting us in one way or
Yeah.
another, whether you want to, when you think you're aware of it or you think you care about it, whether consciously or unconsciously, it will happen. It will affect you, because it's that conversation is everywhere, and it's quite obvious as well. I feel like, it's quite
Yeah,
obvious.
well, it is, and I think there's been some very strange weather in the last few years.
See, I've never seen that. I don't know. When I was growing up, we'd have water shortages and really hot summers and not really cold winters. I mean, I've been living in the Northeast now for 3 years. We've had one winter which was cold, really. Is that extreme? Maybe, but I don't know. I'm on the fence with all that. But
Okay.
what I will say is that conversation, like, save the world because you love it. It's like, where is your energy? If you want to, I guess it's checking in. And I've been talking about this recently, like checking in with like what you really do believe. What do you believe? Are we here for a certain period of time, which what you think is a long time, but it's really just a very short amount in human history? Like, there are species before us that are hominins in our ancestral lineage that were here on this planet for a lot longer than we have been, for hundreds of thousands of years. And would we see those as successful species, or would we see ours as the success? And or are we, once we serve our time here and come to an inevitable end, whenever that may be, what's the next thing? Zach Bush talks about this. It's like giving birth, like the protozoa, the different epochs in time which have allowed different things to take place and then transition into new, different, with that, take language away of what we term like good, bad, successful, long, like all these things are just, who knows why they're happening, or who knows why we're even here. We're here to birth the robot, and then that will continue. Like, or what is this? Checking in with just what we believe, and then if you feel like it's of course we have this urge and this yearning to survive and to take care, and it's what keeps us kind of progressing and wanting to make things better. And that's interesting as well, that kind of primal and innate sense of wanting to kind of continue our species because we care and because we love, and that connection to the whole. But just having that balance between that and then just letting go, because it's not, the unknown is just so beyond and so powerful.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much there, obviously. But also, I hear the kind of importance and entitlement of humanity. We're the most important thing. We need to survive, which I think has been inherent. Our species is like, we had one, maybe two things above all other species, is that we can think about ourselves. We have consciousness, and therefore the amount of progress that we've made in our species history is extraordinary. Evolution generally takes lifetimes, or there's like a really specific functional jump. So yeah, it's a little bit strange for me to work that out, because the other thing is that our physiology actually hasn't changed that much. We're
No.
just using it in many varied and different ways. It's almost like we enjoy the hyper rationality, the mental sort of games of it all, in a way. Like, I like what you said about letting go, because even in the self-help industry, it's all focused on being something else, like growing in, like having a lack, and finding that lack somewhere, either by paying for a course or doing whatever. But if you change that lens to like, oh, I'm unfolding myself in the world, or I'm emerging as this or that, it changes your perspective completely. And I find that we're best as cultivators when we cultivate things, rather than, in this kind of grabbing, you know, how do we survive kind of. And even the conversation about legacy, controlling the legacy of humanity, like that's almost ridiculous, because it's not possible. And legacy is given by others.
Yeah, it's never.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's part, as an ancestry. When someone passes, they gain a legacy through.
It's all relative,
them.
really. It's only relative to the people who hold that belief.
Yeah. So I suppose, yeah, like your question about like, why are we here? That's such a huge question. Was it to invent the internet? Was it to invent this or that?
I think it's going to be the new name of the podcast. It's all I seem to be talking about lately.
But also, why is that important? That's a really
it's irrelevant,
question.
Really, and because we've got that ability to think in that way, to be conscious of those thoughts. It's I just feel like, how can we leverage that to our advantage? How can we fear something we do not know? How can you look at something as a failure if you don't know what's beyond that?
Mm-hmm.
And I think people have been scared of that in the past, scared of people seeing that and what would happen if, anarchy and fear has obviously been used many times in history. Fear and guilt to control, to get what certain people want. And it works. It definitely works.
It does work. Yeah, it does. Yeah. I think even the advantage scope it is seeing it through the energy of fear. It's nature, life, and the universe is abundant, and all life lives there, so yeah, I'm trying to say that, of course we need structures, and civilization is like striving.
I get. What would a week look like for you if you weren't afraid of dying and you were born again? Like, what would your week look like? Would you go out pillaging and hurting people? Likely not. You wouldn't. I wouldn't. Some people might.
I live every day with the knowledge of my death, actually, and that's something I consciously did, and it makes life worth living in a way. Like, and I think one of the greatest challenges for this society, or any society, is to come to terms with death. I really enjoy.
Done that in the past.
Yeah.
It was like whole lives were preparation for that.
That's almost what we're doing, really. Because if you think about life, it's just all things. It's chaotic. It's harmonious. It's always in balance. We get to decide like who we are and what we want to do. Like, and there's this inner knowing. There's this inner drive to do that, and it seems to like coalesce around a certain energy for each person. So, you know, if everyone was living in that centered and present way to themselves, even if they weren't like self-actualized, or if they were like underdeveloped in this way or that way, I feel like it would be a more coherent society. Like everyone would be contributing in a certain way, and yeah, there would still be challenges, but I think the number one challenge for us is the excess. You know, everything is excessive. Yeah, money's excessive, food is excessive, even the cultural idea of love is excessive. The problem with porn is such a big problem. That's excessive. It's power. The power is excessive.
I guess
So,
in
yeah.
Indian cultures they'd call it like accumulation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I've heard.
I understand.
Interestingly, I've heard a Westerner talk about this.
Okay.
Peter Crone talks about this kind of.
Oh yeah, I like him. Yeah.
This, and
Nice.
he speaks to something you were saying earlier about the self-help world and the problems within that, because if you're always trying to change who you are, or if you think you're not supposed to be where you are and you want something different, like all the spiritual teachers talk about this. Muji is so centered on this, yet he's got people worshiping him just like he was Jesus, interpreting it in a different way. But all he's saying is remove all the things that are blocking love within you, and then you will be free, you'll be set free, and things will change around you. Like, that is simple. It's so simple when he talks about it. But it's sometimes we want the quick fix. And I find this within myself as well. I want other people just to come on the podcast and tell me a couple of things that I can integrate to make me a better person, or to just say in a short sentence what I need to do, and just tell me. But that's never gonna work. That's the immature person seeking that, and the infant that wants to make people happy, but just is seeking someone else to tell them that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Tell me what to do to be a good person.
Yeah. And
so yeah,
and also like your attachment to being good, you know. Like, okay, as children in a culture, or we look around our community and say, oh, this community needs this energy. I can do that. I can be that person. And it's a way of assuring our approval, our validation, our belonging.
Sorry, the dog's chewing. Lucas, what are you doing? He's chewing a cushion. That is unheard of. He's never done that before.
Okay.
You want to see Lucas? Come here.
Yeah.
This is Lucas.
Oh, he's super cute.
He's absolutely
so lovely. How old is he?
So cute. If you're watching on video. He is 3. He's like a puppy though. Oh, he's a Staffy cross with the lab.
Oh,
I'm quite shocked that he's chewed a cushion. I think he wants to leave the room, doors closed. That's a sign. It's not that he's misbehaving, that he's trying to tell me something. He's never done that before.
That's what we say with our dog as well. We went somewhere yesterday, and we sat down, and our dog started barking, and we were like, you know, like, this is a public place, fine, like you can bark a little bit, but you know, don't bark too much. And he kept barking, and we're like, no, stop that, it's not good, like, stop barking. And he kept barking, and then my partner was like, oh, okay, I forgot, he always barks when he needs something, and he was really thirsty and hot. You know, that was just what it was, you know. So we had a coat on him, and we took the coat off, we got him some water, and lo and behold, he stopped barking. It's just, we project all of those things onto animals. They don't know how, they're not they don't have rational capacity. Like they can't choose to be a certain way. They communicate. And
Yeah,
they are great teachers in that sense, aren't they?
phenomenal teachers. So this is the longest period of time I've ever had a dog. Looking
Mm-hmm.
after it's my brother's dog.
Mm-hmm.
But on that point, we treat children like pets sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's quite damaging.
That's true. Yes.
But yeah, well, it's just like curbing their behavior without actually trying to understand why.
I think that's interesting because children's brains develop, it's not even parts of their brain that we expect them to have not developed. So they're not capable of doing what we expect them to do. I think that's the thing for me, and it's like the same with animals. Like we say, oh, they do it on purpose, or it's not possible. They cannot, they don't have that capacity within them. So it must be something that we're projecting onto them, and obviously they're our teachers for that reason.
Absolutely. One thing I've really learned from having a dog around is how quickly their state changes from up and then sleep and then up, full alert. And it's that state. I mean, I would love to be able to just do that, to just zone out and completely sleep, like no thoughts kicking around there, to stop him sleep. He just needs to go out. Hold on. Yeah, so the state of like just full high alert and hyper and playing and really in that moment, heart rate's up. And then a minute later, he's just completely fast asleep.
Yeah.
In awe of that.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? Whatever they're doing, they're fully present to what they're doing.
Yeah. Unwavering presence. Yeah, man, let's wrap it up. Well, I've got I think we're heading to meet a friend this afternoon. So yeah. But mate, as always, this has been a pleasure. Love the deep dive with you, man. Love to have you on more regularly, to be honest. Just to explore.
That'd be great.
I mean, we got into some political theory stuff there, which, a lot of this stuff, that's what I love, is I can unwrap this and unpack this with you and just talk about just important things and just go there and see what comes up. I mean, I'm looking forward to listening back through this and then re-looking at some of the things that came up that I wasn't prepared for, or beautiful conversation.
Yeah, I found it very valuable too. Yeah, I'm happy to come on more regularly. I think it's very important to talk about these things, and I'm just fascinated in energy, from whatever form, whether it's how a culture organizes itself, or how we accept the feminine within us as men, or what the healthy masculine looks like. These are all words for different states of energy. So I'm really fascinated and excited by that. And I think, it's a very simple concept, but if you know yourself well, if you know who you are, what you can and can't do, what your values are, what you find important, and who you love deeply, who you want to share your life with, then things become, a lot simpler and easier. But yeah, just going through the challenges and the joys of life. Yeah. But yeah, thanks for having me on. It's always lovely to see you and talk with you as well.
Yeah, good man. Great conclusion. Did you want to point anyone who's listening to anything you're doing, or your Instagram or your coaching? Is that still something you're offering for people?
Yeah. I'm at Creative Essence Life Coaching on Instagram. I'm still coaching people. I work in creativity mostly, and life, like developmental change. So if those things are, we work in quite a spiritual way as well. So if those things interest you, then yeah, give me a shout. I have a Mighty Networks community called Creative Block Beaters as well. where we explore, how to get through creative blocks. That's a very fascinating area as well. So yeah, come find me if you resonate.
Sweet. Amazing, mate.
Nice. Thanks, Chris.